Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you so much and welcome to the CDO Magazine interview series. I'm Kevin Barboza with Ernst & Young, and today I have the pleasure of speaking with Asheesh Chhabra, AVP of Data and Analytics at Merck. Asheesh, welcome to the show. Would be great to have a quick introduction of your background, and we can go from there.
Yeah. Hey, Kevin. Thanks for having me. Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Asheesh Chhabra. I'm the Associate Vice President of Data and Analytics at Merck and MSD that we are known globally. And prior to coming to Merck and MSD, I was heading up data analytics team in the enterprise at GSK and AstraZeneca. So bringing in about 16 to 18 years of pharma experience. So Kevin, thanks for having me today.
That's awesome. Asheesh, I think today's topic that we're going to talk about is around getting data ready for AI and all the buzz around AI, but the importance of having clean, consistent, and annotated data as a foundation. So as you're seeing a lot of these topics emerge, would love to get your perspective around understanding what are the prerequisites as you think about realizing the value for AI that you see with data at the core.
Yeah, Kevin, look, AI has been a great, accelerator over the last 24 months in many things, especially in the life sciences area, especially with the onslaught of Gen AI. What Gen AI has done is it's lowered the barrier of entry for our business users and to really start interacting with data in a more intimate setting. Now, to get the promise of AI right, I think the biggest thing is getting the foundations of data right. So not only do we have to have strong, reliable, trusted data, but we need to have a full understanding of our data. So really increasing the literacy of the organization around its data and treating data as a strategic asset of the company is one of the main pillars that is really going to give us the promise of AI. The other aspect that goes very hand in hand with data is also skills. We need to make sure that we're upskilling the organization on the use of AI, the use of AI techniques, and the use of data in a secure, compliant manner, because it's in a life sciences organization, we have many regulations to consider as we do our business. So we have to make sure that data is available in the right places to the right people at the right time, also with security, compliance, and privacy in mind. So those are the couple of things that I always keep in mind in terms of achieving the promise of AI.
And yeah, and that's great, Asheesh. And that's an interesting observation that we are seeing as well across the industry. Is while data is a foundation, being specific about what aspects of the foundation are different is becoming pretty key. And one of these areas which is coming up is around the procurement of external data assets, the management of that data. How do you govern it and how do you help scale it? So talk to us about how you're doing it slightly differently and what are some of the areas that you're seeing are new when it comes to those external data assets.
Yeah, look, we firmly believe that everybody in the organization should get access to the data that they need, whether it be internal or external. And one of the things that we want to do is how do we standardize ingestion of external data? How do we bring it in, not just from our data procurement aspect, but security, compliance, and privacy, and also design. What are those design choices that we want to make as we bring our data into the organization? And we want to be able to make sure that that creates the opportunity for the business users to get access to their data when they need it immediately and remove the friction that goes in when we procure external data or even internal data. Yeah. So one of the things that we're doing differently at Merck and MSD is we're creating an enterprise-wide data marketplace, which has actually gone live over the last 12 months, where there's a one-stop shop for all of our data users and people that need access to the data to go in, discover and find what data is available, being able to access that data within that user experience, and upon gaining access, to be able to interact with that data within that user experience. So it's not just about making sure we have the strong governance of data so people understand the data and the compliance aspect, but it's also making the user experience very frictionless as well, Kevin. So that's one thing that we're doing differently compared to some of the other experiences that I've had before coming to this enterprise.
Got it. And yeah, and that's actually a great segue into our next section around how you think about frictionless access and frictionless flow of data. This concept is not new. There've been many attempts at doing this in different ways, more from a technical perspective. Asheesh, you seem to have taken a much more business-centric view and a business-centric approach around driving frictionless data flow. But I'm sure you must have hit some barriers along the way and some learnings along the way. Would love to understand from your perspective and for our audience, what are some of the challenges you've encountered as you've kind of democratized data in this data product marketplace?
Yeah, absolutely, Kevin. That's a great question, and it's a lot of questions underneath the question as well. Look, working in a large pharma company, we do have our own complexity, and I'm sure other pharma companies have very similar complexities as ours. I think the biggest differentiator for what I can see from my lens is I'm privileged to have very strong senior executive sponsorship in the organization around how we want to manage, use, and exploit our data as a strategic asset. We're firm believers that every business user should be able to get to access to the data that they need at the time they need it, with the required compliance and governance and privacy principles built in, right? So that's the main thing, is starting with business sponsorship, starting with those big business outcomes that you want to get, right? That really helped us in demonstrating value of the capability that we were building, anchoring into business value, having those strong business sponsors, and then realizing that value as well. What we also see happening, not just within the company that I work for, but across the pharma organization, data is becoming more and more important cross-divisionally. We're not seeing the need of data just happening in siloed divisions. There is this really broad thinking coming up. You call it enterprise thinking, horizontal ways of working, or breaking down silos, because data is becoming cross-divisional. So if you look at one of your major data entities, you look at customer, yes, customer belongs within the commercial estate, depending on who your customer is. But then that customer takes different personas throughout the organization, especially within our pharma business. They come in as a key opinion leader. They come in as an investigator. We need to be able to make sure that the common unified experience that we want to provide, we're looking at that data cross-divisionally. And there are many more examples like this where data is truly becoming cross-divisional. And we firmly believe that there is more value in our data than just the immediate need of within that business division, right? And looking at data cross-divisionally, it does many things, but the top three things that it does, it promotes very deep collaboration around data. So people have a unified view of how that data is being used, which business process is being used in. It helps us with our data procurement processes because we don't have to buy that same data twice. So making that data available and making it aware where that data is in the organization. And then the last thing is it doubles down on our security, compliance, and privacy. Not every data needs to be democratized, right? It all's based on the use cases and the outcomes that you're driving to. Now, I'll also end with this. Just by saying that we're going to make data available in the marketplace, we're very careful about just making sure that it's not just accessible, right? Making data available so people can find what data is out there, and then putting in the right controls in place to make sure that before you access that data, there's a request process, there's a training process, there's a governance compliance process that is very quick in order for you to get access to that data.
Got it. And I think that's spot on, Asheesh. And to summarize, it seems like there's a significant amount of upfront thinking around the data design of the data products meaningfully by business stakeholders as a strong stakeholder sponsorship. And then you also mentioned that you've enabled technology components. Let's talk about the third part a bit more. Because getting this access in a meaningful way stitched to different customers in the organization. What are the things that you and team, Asheesh, have done from a technology perspective to enable this differentiated outcome? Would love to hear some of that thinking from you as well.
Yeah, absolutely. So from a design perspective, from a technology design and an architecture design perspective, the first thing that we did was always anchor on the critical business outcomes we want to get. All of our design decisions are anchored into what is the business outcome and the user experience we want to drive to, because that's really kind of our North Star. We took a platform play to our approach of making sure that we have a marketplace that is well connected to a data catalog, which is well connected to an access control capability, which is well connected to our cloud infrastructure. Now, there's not one technology that is out there, even with our platform approach. So we kind of abstracted that. What we did was we brought in the best technology within our ecosystem. We didn't go for, best in class. We went for best in breed, right? Because we knew that it has to tie our ecosystem together.
Yep.
So we are on one of the big 3 cloud providers, but just like any large pharma, we are also making sure that we are interoperable between different cloud providers. So with that, we had to make very specific technology choices from an architecture perspective to make sure that our design and implementation of those technologies could also become cloud agnostic, right? So that's kind of the approach that we took. But most of our experiences, our design choices were all anchored in the business outcomes. What is the business experience you want to drive? Who are the personas that are going to use this data?
Mm-hmm.
You talk about data products, and we look at the world of data products in a governance view, which is we've got data producers, people that produce data products, and then we've got data consumers, people that consume those data products. So we looked at it from that lens as well as we designed our ecosystem. Right? So that's the approach that we took. But one thing that I would share is there's not one technology that can fit the bill. You have to pick in your ecosystem that you live in to figure out what's that best of breed that you can stitch together to provide that unified experience to your users.
So Asheesh, thank you so much for spending the time, with us today. I think it's a fascinating conversation, and it's really insightful, the journey that you've been on with Merck, and wishing you the best on continued success on this journey ahead as you move forward. So for the audience, thank you so much for joining, and thank you, Asheesh, for joining me today. For more interviews and insights, please visit cdomagazine.tech. Thank you.
Thanks, Kevin.